Look what we have here. It's a new ready-to-run vehicle from RC4 Drive. It's the 1987 Toyota Extra Cab pickup truck, and it is quite a looker. I think it's one of the most complete vehicles, ready to runs that I've seen RC4 Drive come up with. You might have seen on the channel before my Marty McFly vehicle from Back to the Future. I fell in love with that vehicle, and they even offered RC4 Drive even offered their same version of that for $700. Click here for my video. And this one, RC4 Drive I think has become a little more aggressive. They have the K10 Chevy K10, the blue one over there, for $550, and it's a lot more attractive. Works a lot better too. And this one has quite a few improvements to it. Most notably, the axles are pretty darn good. These are Yota II axles, and they have these XVD axles that are a really strengthened version of their CVDs. And that was a weak point before. They had dog bones, and that kept breaking under stress. So this one is pretty darn cool. And the drivetrain seems smoother as well. All right, what are the other extras that come with it? So there's a bunch of opening doors for them. I open them right now, so you can kind of see them. So we have a fairly deep bed right there, nicely opening tailgate. The doors are very nice, and the action of them is really cool. It really is quite easy to open. I think it's magnetized, and it kind of swivels into place. When you open it, it stays open. And then the highlight is they have the motor engine bay with the 22RE. What a sight. So I had this driver, Marty McFly, right here, a NECA with accessories. So he fits pretty darn good because he's not that tall. But I do, the seats don't compress. So his head is kind of hitting the roof. We have a trick where you just heat gun the seat and then you can press it down. And then you can see here his accessories, his backpack, his skateboard. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to run it on the table and show you how it runs. I turned off the lights, or I didn't plug them in, just so it's not distracting the camera. But the steering is pretty darn good, and the modulation is not bad. Look at that, look at that. And the drivetrain is really smooth. So I'm running 2S right now, which is advisable on, if you don't need to go that fast and you're just running the stock ESC. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a 3-point turn or a 4-point turn, which is not easy with an RC4 drive on a table this small. The left turn is a little better than the right, but I feel confident now of the control of these things. So check it out, huh? Not bad, huh? I would never do this before on RC4 drive because it would just take forever. But a little bit of binding at the limit. I think I'm very close. What else do we have that's notable? So we have the stamped wheels, steel wheels, a nice KO2 rubber, BFGoodrich, pretty nice supportive foam. We have these plastic sliders, which are quite handy. We have these super scale shocks, 90 millimeters on the rear and 70 in the front. And some other thing they did was they tuned the shocks pretty nicely. I always complain, RC4 drive, you got to take out a bunch of springs. So the front, I think, is pretty darn dialed because, you're almost, it sags pretty good. It sits in the middle of travel. The rear, on the other hand, is still a little hard. There's two springs, a short one and a long one. So I don't think we're compressing the springs yet. We're just moving the arms. And then look at the movement. There's quite a bit of movement, but it does take a bunch of pressure. So I think it's sprung for if you have a heavy load in there. But if I had this long term, I would probably take the short springs out. So it would. And I'll show you to give you some advice on this thing. So stock RTR, pretty basic. So the clutch is a little loose, quite easy to make it slip out there on the trail. So tighten that a little bit. The leaf springs on the rear. Also, the shock oil was about 20 to 30 weight, and it was pretty light. So what I did was I put 70 weight. I drained it. I put 70, and now it's not bouncy anymore. It's really damping the whole system. The other thing is all the screws that I touched for the shocks and whatnot, they were a little bit loose, and so you wanna check all your screws and Loctite them. There's not a lot of Loctite. And on my first run, the servo arm fell off because that screw was loose as well. So there you go. Enjoy some running video, and then we'll open this up and I'll show you what's inside. How'd you like that running footage, huh? As promised, I'm going to take off the body. Look at it right here. So the engine bay is part of the body right there. So it's going to go with it. There's nothing here, just the motor. And it's pretty heavy, you know? Interior, engine, everything. So here is the chassis. And the first thing you'll notice is the wheel wells. Wheel wells are thin, but they're pretty elaborate, pretty shaped. The front and the rear are quite different, longish on the rear. So the wheel wells, hide everything inside, including the wires, and they make the body, installing the body, a little harder. You just gotta push in these things and put in a little muscle. So the battery is right here. I'm using a 2-cell at the moment. You got your ESC and receiver is in the box, and you have your standard 45 turn motor and servo. Like I said, pretty not too bad, right, for the kind of vehicle that it is. And here is something kind of surprising: how it can modulate pretty good, and its speed, it's pretty smooth. And I think RC four-wheel drive has done a lot of work in working on their axles to make sure they're durable and they're quiet, and that doesn't take away from the fun. So look at how quiet it is. So there you go. What do you guys think? There is going to be a link in the description. I believe it's a pre-order. I'm not exactly sure on the price right now, but if you want to help the channel out and you're interested in this, make sure you hit the link in the description, and we'll get a small commission from that. All right? Thank you. Okay, this is a test of the mic level. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.